So the next step after you have your main idea will be to write the rough draft. So you are going to have a week to complete this. So by 10 a.m., notice that time there, next Tuesday, May 5th. So let's talk about the rough draft requirements. If you go into your Google Drive and go to Shared with Me, you will have a blank document. We have done this before. This is where you absolutely must type your rough draft. This gives me access to it so that I can see it and give you feedback and comments that way. So go into your Google Classroom and or your Google Drive, and you will see that blank document, and you must do it. The very first thing that I recommend you do is to copy and paste your MLA citations into this document. Everything needs to be in one document. So rough draft and then the MLA citation. So don't forget to do that. All right, so now let's talk about what goes into the introduction. We always start out with an attention grabber. This one is a little different because we have to make sure, if you think about the persuasive paper, we talked about, stating an interesting fact or a quote. Well, we can't do that this time because it's going to favor one side. So an engaging quote that does not favor one side, a piece of dialogue. So you could come up with and kind of make up an example of two people discussing your topic. And so you could kind of come up with just like a fake dialogue in that sense, or a quote that gets your audience thinking about it, but again, does not favor one side. The other thing that goes into the introduction is going to be your main idea statement. You've already written this, so just copy and paste what I have approved into your introduction. Next thing is going to be the body paragraphs. You will have 4 body paragraphs. Here's where you can decide what goes first. Do you talk about the advantages first, or do you talk about the disadvantages first? What you want to keep in mind is, what do you think your audience is most familiar with? If they are most familiar with the advantages, then talk about those first so that they end on something that they do not already know with the disadvantages. Are your disadvantages more familiar? Then talk about those first and end with the advantages. You have to decide what you feel would be best to talk about. But one thing that you want to do is you want to talk about them together. So both advantages would go first, or both disadvantages. Do not go back and forth and do advantage, disadvantage, advantage, disadvantage. It makes it too confusing for your audience. So here is what your body paragraphs. So if I decided to do the advantage, 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 disadvantage, disadvantage, and then you have your support after each, or you'd start with disadvantage, disadvantage, advantage, advantage. So what actually goes in there? First, you're going to start out with your advantage or disadvantage. Go to your concept map. That's where you're going to use all of that information. You'll start with your reason. Then you'll talk about your evidence, whether it's the fact, the expert opinion, or the anecdote. Then you'll have your elaboration with another fact, expert opinion, or anecdote, and then putting in examples. Do not use yourself as pieces of information. I should not see any personal words in here. The last part, so after you've written your 4 body paragraphs, you are going to have your conclusion. So you are going to pick the strongest advantage and the strongest disadvantage, and you are going to restate. That does not mean it's the exact same words. You need to put it in other words, and then you allow your audience to come up with their own conclusions. So kind of sending them forth to make their own decisions. Again, we are not including an opinion, so there should not be any personal words. After you've written all of that, you're going to type it up. Make sure you follow the formatting that I have also sent you in Google Classroom. Make sure your MLA citations are there as well. Double spacing, format, you guys know the drill on all of this.